What is up, guys? Good morning. I'm sitting right now here in Düsseldorf at a super sunny morning, and yeah, this morning I've been listening to a song and it really got me thinking about my whole story of, let's say, the past 10 or I'm 23 at this point, and I just wanted to share with you today yeah, my story of growing up, where I come from, my background, because I get this question a lot. Danny, where are you actually from? What languages do you speak? And sometimes people are very surprised. And today it's gonna be I think it's gonna be quite a personal video, definitely. But actually shedding a few tears in the past 30 minutes, but really tears of joy and happiness, even you could say, and excitement, maybe a little bit of sadness, but I've been listening to the song this morning. Mama said, rewrite your history, live out your wildest dreams, manifest destiny. Kind of like that. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I'm maybe gonna link it below. And it really got me thinking about why I feel the way I feel right now, and how, yeah, there have been a lot of struggles when I've been growing up. Nothing like unreasonable, nothing crazy, nothing that I want to make myself out to be like whatever, like less fortunate or the victim of something. Not at all, actually. Maybe even the opposite of it. But yeah, to really get into it, like if you're new here on the channel or you know me from my main channel, Danny Got a World to See, I've been traveling a lot, and it might seem like everything is like always like perfect and sunshine, and maybe not. I don't know what it seems like, but yeah, basically I was born in Ukraine, post-Soviet country, in Zaporozhye, industrial city, and my brother was born there as well, my older brother, and then we immigrated to Germany when I was like 6, I believe, something like that. And I had quite an interesting childhood. Obviously, having my older brother, I remember we were having cats and stuff like that. We were always chilling like on a summer village house. So a lot of very bright and joyful child memories. Like also a lot of like very cool like videos of me just jumping around. So no tragedy going on, but there has been always this little financial element. I also remember like we have been moving around a lot when I was younger with my dad. He was somewhat in the army. Maybe I should talk to him about that. Actually quite curious about it. We've been living in like a very small village, and we've been living in a city in Odessa, and yeah, there have been like a few moments, like I remember this one moment, like it never has been really bad, but I think my parents did quite a good bit of investments, and they also like tried to send us to a private school at some point for 1 year. That's been quite cool. And at the end of the month they have been asking us about, let's say, our piggy bank money to get some groceries, just because we didn't have any. And maybe there was somewhat of a memorable, maybe even like traumatizing a moment, and I do really remember that in a lot of different ways. And when I was growing up in Germany, again, amazing childhood. I remember we've been living like in this like house, basically like orientational house for immigrants, and they have quite a cool actually community feeling. I got like my first bike, I was driving around, and I remember always being pretty excited and super overly energetic about life. That's how I always pretty much been. And these days I ask myself questions like, why am I so ecstatic about just like very slow progress, about little wins? Why am I able to maybe see a little bit more of the bigger picture than sometimes I always think that I always have thought that everybody knows what I know. Like I never felt better inherently, like in some situations, like everyone is freaking out, and I, for some reason, I'm pretty calm and pretty grounded, while there are some areas in life where I definitely had a few issues. But in general, when it came to like the future, school, society's expectations, I was always pretty chill, and I was like asking myself for the past few years why that was. And you see, when I was like, let's say 10, 11, 12, I definitely noticed that there's like some financial lack in the family. As I said, again, everything was fine. In Germany, there really no one has to struggle. It's something that I definitely am forever grateful for the opportunity that we have been given. Not necessarily, let's say, really pragmatically and rationally. Like for my parents, like it didn't turn out that amazing. They're still like orientating themselves. But for us, for me, my brother's doing amazing. doing great big things. I am starting out. Yeah, I've been doing some stuff for the past few years. I don't know, I feel like I'm always at day one in a way of like, it's amazing what I was able to achieve already, and I'm so proud about it. But at the same time, I feel like it's just day one. I'm just starting out. I'm just a guy like here in the game and trying to feel everything out and to live really a lot. A lot. And you see, me noticing this financial lack, luckily I had my older brother as a role model. He was like doing his first jobs, making his first money, and I was like, yo, this is the way to go. Me, like as a 10-year-old, I'm like, yeah, that's the way that you do it. And there have been like some big, very character building moments. Like I remember my brother once found a €50 bill. To me, this has been back in the day, like 2000 or something, like 5,000. I'm like, oh my God, we were rich. And then there was like a guy coming out of like this, like some shop, and he was like looking around for shit, like 10-15 minutes later. And my brother's like, maybe he's looking for his money. And then we're asking him what he's looking for. Like my brother is asking him, and then he literally gave him the €50 back. And this guy was like so happy, and he gave all, like we were like 3-4 guys, he gave us like a few euros. And while at that day I was super pissed at him, definitely also like a lot of very formative moments from my older brother, just like leading by example when it came to like making early money myself. And I noticed like, hey, I have to make stuff happen myself. And the very big thing is, especially from my mom's side, there has been always this, like, on the one side, she was like shielding us a little bit from all the drama. Like they were never like discussing it super publicly in front of us. Like, you know, like some maybe things that weren't like going very right. But at the same time also, there has been a clear communication like, hey, like it's not going that amazing, but that does not mean that you can do what you want to do, that you can do whatever you want to do, and you can be whoever you want to be. Not in an unreasonable way, not in like you are special way, but in a way of like, hey, this is the setting point, but there are opportunities out there. Like, hey, you can like join your brother like with this work. I did, and it worked out amazing. And I got a lot of freedom. I got a lot of freedom to completely fall on my nose, flat out, and just like, yeah, try out stuff and figure out stuff. And I hated it. I had to figure out everything by myself. Like I remember opening up a bank account at a young age. Had to figure it out myself. Also, when my brother at some point also left the household, my older brother, I had to take on really a lot of responsibility when it came to like writing all the like the letters and all of the stuff that is coming in, obviously in a language that they somewhat speak, but like you have to have someone who's like super like fluent in it. And yeah, I had to take on a lot of responsibility when it just came for the whole family pretty much, when it just like in terms of like bureaucracy, stuff like that. And that has been a huge weight on my shoulders. That has been really dragging me down and pushing me down. And I'm sure that definitely some behavior of today, but especially back in the day, have been just like yeah, compensating in some way, and definitely try to keep an eye open for it and be aware of it. But at the same time, while it has been quite a not a horrible time, but like in a very intense time that sometimes I felt like I cannot really carry this weight. Over the months, over the years, I was always able to find something to make some money. I always, like at a very young age, I experienced a certain sense of independence. Like, you know, me being 13, 14 and wanting to go somewhere, everybody's like, yo, I'm gonna have to ask my parents. And for me, this has been a very foreign concept. I was like, wow, this is how it is. Because like, whenever you grow up, you always think that whatever is happening with your family is normal. So with good stuff, but also with bad stuff, and that affects you a lot. And I feel like people are not aware of that enough, and just like bring that into your consciousness once you're older to understand yourself a little better. And let's talk about the big positives. The big it's just that with all this freedom, I had also a lot of freedom to make mistakes, to fall on my nose, as I said. And sometimes also feel like, as I said, I am somewhat responsible for my own life. And I remember this other story, like my first bigger breakup. I was like 17, obviously like already like somewhat of a teenage, like early manhood. I was feeling very ready, already, like, grown up, obviously. Not today. I mean, I'll probably feel less like that today than I did then. And yeah, man, it has been an emotional time. Like, for first time, really emotionally, open yourself. Not my first like girlfriend. Like, this is a story for a different video. From a young age, I've been like really working on social skills, pickup, you could call it, like 16, 17. But then I was like, watch a little bit too many romantic movies, and nothing wrong with that, absolutely not. But just, it has been harsh, and everybody knows that feeling. Just like, oh, it's just like suffocating heartbreak for a few weeks, maybe even a few months. And I remember calling up my mom even during school, and being like, "Mom, like, it sucks. I cannot take it." And she was always there for me. We had like a few great conversations. But this one time when I called her up in school again, she was like, "Yeah, that's okay. That's part of it. It's okay to feel these emotions, but I cannot do anything about it. You have to go through this right now. And what do you want me to do right now?" Because I was like, "Mom, like, just be like, try to externalize comforting. Of course, we need people who can comfort us and give us, it's super important to have that. But that was, again, a moment where it was like, hey, at the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself, for your emotional world, for just living through stuff." And that has been, again, like one of those moments I remember. I was like, definitely helped me to just become stronger, a lot more stronger and independent and free because of that. Because I know that I can go through stuff like that by myself. It's not going to take weeks, months, or years. I can actually use this energy, this pain, this suffering, understand that it's part of this whole big game here, and move forward. And yeah, obviously the huge positives is just overall that all of this huge stress and weight that I felt on my shoulders, like literally, I'm not, like, emotional distress is very relative. You might have the perfect life, live in the perfect house, have the perfect partner, but still be so miserable and like addicted to drugs because you cannot feel anything else. And this is obviously like the best example, just like celebrities that completely go off the hook and like completely go crazy. It's like, why? You live the perfect life. But it's not that easy, it's relative. And obviously, while objectively speaking, it hasn't been a great place to be in, also relatively, I remember just like numbing myself of like listening to like audiobooks of like Sherlock Holmes when I was on the bus when I was like 15, 16, when I started to like truly realize the situation that we have been in. That was just, again, nothing horrible, but like, especially at that age, I've been playing it up a little bit, I would say, even. And yeah, that has been stuff that I really needed to let go in the past few years. Certain fears of just like, oh, not making it. But at the same time, this fear was driving me to start out and to have like a fire to do stuff, and it still maybe to some extent does. But at the other side also, it allowed me to fall flat on my nose and to figure it out by myself. And I feel like these days we live in a society that on the one side it's a great intention. It's like, hey, let's make everybody feel great and comfortable, and like don't distress anyone and don't trigger anyone, and make everyone feel great about themselves, and like you're perfect the way you are, even though like you're a mess, And while I think it's an amazing thing to accept people, it's also sometimes you need to let people fall flat on their face, on a nose, and just let them get up by themselves. Because if you are going to help them up, possibly, and this is like reality, internally you're going to signal them and show them that they are not able to do that by themselves. And while there's obviously, with every situation, there's a nuance, and sometimes it can make sense to help a reaching hand, and sometimes people cannot go through stuff by themselves. Too often, especially in just like normal, more or less situations, I feel like negative experiences can be a blessing in disguise. In a way of, you go through situations, you carry this weight on your shoulders, and at the end of it, years later, you realize that this is now the reason why, when everybody is just getting hysterical and fearful and lives their life in fear, for some reason you carried that load. You went through that challenge. You maybe fell, you stood back up again, as cliche and corny as that sound. and nobody help you up. And that's amazing. And I feel like, yeah, that's one of the reasons why these days I feel a certain responsibility to share a lot of the mindsets over the past like 10 years, really. Actually, my mom also got me back in the day into a little bit of like personal development. She had like a finance book sitting around there, some like The Secret, blah, 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 which I don't really like, but I'm like neutral about it. Yeah, but that opened my mind to really sort of a little bit of an alternative way of thinking, and also taking like reading a lot into topics around mental health, mental empowerment, personal empowerment, and this very big question of whenever you love someone, if they are in distress and in trouble, should you help them? Natural response is of course, yes. But are you maybe taking away from them the opportunity to help themselves? And I feel like this is my huge, biggest, let's say, fortunate situation and blessing, and something that I'll be forever grateful for. And the main message of today's video is really that no matter what your background is, like if it was like really bad for you, I'm sorry, guy or girl, I'm very sorry. And maybe you are in a situation where you might need to get help, and like I perfectly respect that. But at the same time, no matter where you come from, what your upbringing has been, if you're able to watch this video right now, there is a lot of opportunity out there. And sometimes seeing things differently. And maybe you did not have a mom like this that told you that you can do everything, but you still have to toughen up, be realistic, don't be naive, you're not special, you have to work. Maybe you didn't have that, but you have to work with what you have. And like right now, you watching this and listening to this from whatever point in life, I feel like looking at the same situation in a different way can change so many things inside here. And for some reason, these days, I'm excited about the smallest things. I'm ecstatic about the smallest successes. I'm even ecstatic about some failures. I understand that they're part of the whole game. And sometimes I feel miserable. Emotionally, I feel very bad. Maybe even pity myself a little bit. But still I sit there in happiness, in a certain like overall overarching state of just knowing that one day I will look back at all of that and I feel like I am making the right decisions. I'm pushing further, I'm living and I'm growing. And I really like this quote: the only sign of life is growth, and the end goal like is not to be like then this big whatever, but it's gonna be cool too. But the growing. And yeah, this is pretty much my story. Just a few little very, very personal stories, obviously. So stuff that I like told very few people, not because I'm ashamed of anything. It's just that right now I feel like it can make sense to share it. And yeah, just like with that, I speak Russian, I speak German, I speak English. These days English, mostly. Deutsch auf jeden Fall auch. Coole Sprache, werde ich versuchen auf jeden Fall beizubehalten, auch wenn ich viel unterwegs bin. По-русски мы тоже говорим, но в любом случае немного тяжело. В особенности про такие более сложные темы, когда с мамой хочу поговорить. Обычно так ищу слова, но ничего. Overall, basically I was just like saying that my German, like it, my Russian, like it, love it too, and I feel like knowing a few languages, again, such a blessing, and the last thing that I want to finish off at is that a blessing in disguise, that all of the crap that might be happening to you, while you go through it, me right now, me back in the day, you don't want to hear it, but I feel like internalizing it, and maybe like looking back into your life and like digging up some bad stuff and start to look at it differently. So now that you go through, like relative from your perspective, bad stuff, you can see it a little bit different, with a little bit of different eyes. And with that, let's bring the positivity back, because I actually feel crazy good. This is definitely quite a longer video. And yeah, this is how growing up in Germany was as an immigrant. I think I'll call the video something like that, my story. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know below. This is a very abstract video about all of these mindsets. You can be very practical. There is, I feel like, some underlying groundwork of how you think, how you look at things, how you interpret them, how you act out, and how your acting reaffirms your self-identity. So if you would like to dive in deeper with me one-on-one, drop me an email in the description below, be it talk about topics like this and maybe work around and find a way to just like grow like crazy, or things like, for example, doing what I do, create videos around the world, especially on Denigar World, to see my travel vlogs, my cinematic videos, getting in shape and staying in shape, all of these things that I put in years of work in. I would like to help you to get better at that as well. So with that, reach out, and until next time.